Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Embrace of the Vampire. So, immediately, we have to say the word embrace, which I don't think anybody really uses anymore. Very rarely do you ever, use the word embrace unless you're, being welcomed into somewhere. And then, that would make a lot of sense to just be like, well, hey, we embraced you like one of our own. And, you went on and just, crapped on all of that. That's the only time where I think, embrace would actually make sense. Um, but, I would never use brace as a, replacement for a word called hug that is three letters and you can easily say hug and be done with it. But I don't know, maybe a lot of people would like to use the word embrace just because it's weird. I don't know. But let's go on. So here's the thing. Normally I would try to go on in a film and I would justify that instead of there being certain kind of scenes that lead to people that don't much have clothes on in pretty much almost entire movie, I would say normally there would be some story or there would be some kind of interesting thing about this movie that I could justify or just kind of pay more attention to than all the other kind of scenes that I would go on and try to avoid for reasons. But for this film, a little bit difficult to do that. Because other than those kind of scenes that, of course, are to be very revealing, let's just say, there isn't any kind of revealing story that I justify to have somebody go out of their way to watch this movie simply because of the story. Plus, this is to be this kind of very old fashioned romance movie where we kind of have the vampire character sounding very much like Fabio, and he's like, I can't believe it's not Butter. He kind of sounds like that through a bulk of this film. And it's a very romance film, and really, I'm just kind of like, ugh, this is. This movie just doesn't hold up besides what it holds near and dear, which is to be some very good looking actresses and actors and in certain scenes that I would dare say show some derriere or other dare say parts of Bates through this movie. So I was kind of also impressed by the cast list within this movie. We had one girl who was in the movie The Golden Child. We had one girl from the movie The Craft. We had one girl who was in, excuse me, the Chucky movies and the Chucky series. And I was like, man, we're kind of banging on all cylinders for this whole cast. But again, the story is is really nothing. Plus, also we have the vampire in this film that does this Jedi power that doesn't quite make sense to me, and my whole brain noggin of just say what now? We have the vampire that goes on and electrifies a character, knocks him down with his finger. I'm like, okay, that's weird, right? So. With that said, teeing it up, what is this movie about? Well, currently right now it's available on Tubi, Tubi. Justifyingly, the only way to really sell this film is say go out of your way to watch a bunch of scenes, of course, that are to have people at really good shapes of their life to go on and see some bedroom business scenes, I guess. That's the only real selling point of this. But because there's immediately I would probably go on, and if I were to watch this the first time and have done this review, I would go on and probably approach this differently. Like, I could probably also say that this movie has this kind of coming of age kind of movie to it, or a person showing maturity, or a person deciding to, instead of being peer pressured by the world, to go on and still want to um, like hold on to like a certain kind of a morality or something like that, which a lot of times in a lot of other movies, like a person would probably be shamed for that kind of thing, and or they would have to like, hey guys, we have the whole entire goal to just pop our cherries before we get out of high school, or something like that. There's always that weird absurd goal that doesn't make any sense anymore, and thank God they never do those kind of movies anymore, because it just doesn't make any more sense. Just like there's been too many of those kinds of movies, so it's like, why go on and still like try to respin that wheel? That doesn't really work anymore. It doesn't really make sense to do that kind of film anymore. So with that said, also it's kind of interesting to find out that this movie had a 2013 reboot remake with the same title. Okay, I'm sure there was a different spin with this, where I think in the pictures I ended up seeing like a female who's a vampire. I'm like, oh, okay, so instead of having it be a vampire guy, like they just switched it around and it's like a vampire girl. I see what they did there. So it's kind of like oh, I would want to say like Rabid, but like really when it comes down to it, like Rabid isn't to like to have a like, it's more like Fright Night. That makes a lot more sense. Because we had in the first movie was like a male vampire, and then the Fright Night 2, we had a female vampire. So I guess that makes more sense. Even though we had the same main character that was in two different films, and like he always had a girlfriend, and but like we had like, I think Brewster, who is his name, is to get seduced by a female vampire in sequel film, because it seems that he is to again have a like a brand new relationship with some other girl, because I guess the other one just didn't work out. Fright Night, everybody, Fright Night. So with that said, let's just go on and let's go into spoilers. At the end of the day, like I can't justify to even say that this movie is an okay film. Uh, like I would say, because I've seen it more than once now, I would say that this is a bad film, but like I wouldn't like want to just throw the book at it like, bah, what a god awful film. I would just go on and say that there might be some justifying reasons for people to come out of this film just going like, oh, okay, like I can go on and see myself watching this more than once. Other person, who is which they're like, oh yeah, I can go on and see this, and it not be me saying that. But anyways, so with that said, let's just go into this double five. Let's just go into spoilers about this one. Um, because really, it's just a girl who is to save herself, and this vampires want to take full advantage of that, because we have like a Jim Carrey once bitten kind of story here, that is to go on and turn to this love triangle movie, and we have the vampire who's trying to figure out how he can like get Charlotte alone, as well as this vampire who is to consistently be haunting Charlotte's dreams, and kind of almost being at very end of days ish, which I just recently saw. So, with that said, let's just go into spoilers. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time you spoil this movie. So, in the very beginning of this film, we have it where, of course, Charlotte is to make her way into her campus, and we have a vampire who is to showcase his origin of how he is to become a vampire while he's going on and writing this book of his journey. So, because his vampires reflect on like love, and like Charlotte, it seems that she is to possibly be in love with Chris as she's going on to leave Chris to go to her room. And so the vampire is reflecting on his past love, and he, of course, was to be in love with this princess. So both of them are outdoors, I guess, kind of picnicking or whichever. And so it seems that the princess, for whatever reason, is to have to go on. Maybe like her castle is in danger or whatever. And so this princess goes back on her horse and has to gallop away. And so all of a sudden, this guy, who is to not be a vampire quite yet, is all of a sudden to be surprised by these nymphs, these girls that are to be these kind of Tarzan looking girls. That, if of course you have seen a number of visuals of Tarzan, you would realize that Tarzan usually has a loincloth and nothing else. Kind of the same thing for these girls. So the vampire all of a sudden, or the guy who is to become a vampire, is to be bitten by a number of these girls. And I'm like, wait a minute. So these girls are outside during the daylight and they're not like bursting into flame or anything. Like, we could justify, like, hey, that these girls were starving and so they just found the first snack they saw, and then after that, like, they like didn't realize they were so starving that like the sun, and they could have died. You could have justified all that, but no, they didn't justify this in this movie. Like, they don't really go on and do a kind of, they don't go on and do the whole sunlight thing. They don't showcase this vampire's weakness, besides us really just saying here that this vampire is going to die without Alyssa Milano's blood, and that just kind of feels very weak to me. But again, I would go on and see the Jim Carrey movie Once Bitten, so it's like, okay, like, I guess you just have to like weirdly have that be some bizarrish story that we have here. So you would have thought that like that this vampire would have plucked some women and plucked them early, so to speak. Plucked, joke. So we, after that weird and goofy origin story of, but hey, we see some women. We see some good looking ladies. So good for that, but still. So the vampire is to go on and lure Charlotte back to where he is to have a place called home. And so the Dracula vampire character, the vampire character, is to be so tempted in wanting to just drain this girl right now of all of her blood, but he just can't. Like, it isn't right. And I'm like, we have wait, we have a vampire with with a moral conundrum. I am just so confused. But we have this vampire that's like, well, like, here's the thing, like, Charlotte is with a guy named Chris, and so the vampire can't like erupt like their love, and so the vampire has to figure out a way to break up their relationship and then have this girl fall for him, which is never really going to happen unless like this guy can really go on and figure out how to seduce this girl by haunting her dreams and making her see some things and believe some stuff. So we have the vampire that is to go on and take this girl's necklace and destroy it, and then he goes on and gives her his necklace, and like we find out that this necklace is to be an anks, an ANKS, anks. It has some Egyptian or some Egypt like kind of retro vibe to it. So we have the vampire that goes on and leaves, and so it seems we have Charlotte that is making her way to this campus. And she just kind of falls asleep by this dorm, and so Chris is calling Charlotte, and he's just kind of concerned because he can psychically just have this feeling that there's something wrong with Charlotte. Maybe Chris is having horrible nightmares as well. And so Chris is to make his way to this campus to just see Charlotte, hoping that she's completely okay. So Chris goes on and is to grab her and is to bring her into this place and is to just go on and sleep next to her like a nice gentleman and whatever. So they wake up the next day, and Charlotte is to feel great that both of them are kind of sharing a bed together. And now we get to go on and find out Charlotte's backstory. That, of course, Charlotte was to have gone on to be raised by nuns, and so Charlotte had a bunch of things like instilled in her to just kind of try to be pure, as if she's like she is to be like a lot of people would probably say, like famously, like the Nick Jonas or the Jonas Brothers, who go on and like were to wear purity rings and were to like try to like save themselves for marriage, which like, hey, like really, like these guys can go on and like if people want to do that, people go ahead and do that. So uh so we go on in this story, and Charlotte, of course, is to like change clothes and get ready to go off to her classes, and so we have Charlotte who is to obviously see Chris off here, and then we transition, I guess, to have Charlotte kind of having this whole day that we never really see, but we kind of see her in bed later, where it seems that the vampire is going on and haunting Charlotte's dreams. Of course, having this vampire that is to see her in bed and is to decide to try and figure out a way to feel her, and all of a sudden Charlotte is to wake up and just kind of be weirded out to the point to where she, of course, to wake up the very next day, talking to her friend Nicole and mentioning that she is just having these really weird dreams. And Nicole's like, "Well, hey, like, tell me about your dreams. Like, hey, like we're friends, and like, you know what? Like, I've had all kinds of weird dreams. So just kind of like, let me know, like, what your dreams are about." So we find out that there is to be, and I'm not quite sure where this lines up perfectly, so I'm just going to go on and just say this now. Because we also had Nicole, who was seeing both Chris and and Charlotte kind of leaving, and Nicole's like, "Hey, Chris, you're looking pretty good." So it seems that we find out that there is some other like neighbor that lives in the floor that Charlotte is on, who of course to be called Sarah, and I guess Sarah likes to go on and take a number of pictures of a number of her classmates, and usually those poses end with her going on and uh, doing certain things with those guys or with those girls afterwards. Because really, when it comes down to it, it seems that most of these photos end up with a person that is to start to have less and less clothes on. So, and so this girl has kind of been known to be doing this. So we we go into this story, and we have both Charlotte and Nicole who are kind of going off to kind of make it to this gathering of sorts of all these students and all these guys and all these girls and whatever. Because we of course have Eliza, who's to be this like bully towards Charlotte here, and it's just kind of really just make fun of a lot of types. Excuse me. Of Charlotte's upbringing and so on and so forth. So really, after that, we have it where we, of course, are having the vampire have an idea that really all the vampire needs to do to try and have it be that Charlotte may not trust Chris is to put doubt in her head that maybe Chris is going to go on and find some other girl and is going to be with her. Plus, also, we have immediately the vampires going on and starting to kill off certain friends of Charlotte. And so that, of course, leads Nicole, who is to go to this kind of gathering, and she is to go on and take this guy. And Charlotte is to be with uh, this man that she really doesn't like because he's being very handsy. And Charlotte is like, no, I'm not really interested. And this guy keeps pushing. And so the vampires to come in and tell this guy to like leave her alone. And he then does so. And giving Charlotte time to just kind of walk away from this guy. So, and that's again also where uh, we're just going to start to have the seeds of doubt being planted. Because we have at one point where uh, Chris is having trouble sleeping, and so he at one point is to call Charlotte, and Charlotte is like, well, yeah, like, I was going to call you too, but I didn't think it was the right thing to do. And Chris is just like, well, like, why? You could have just called me. And Charlotte's like, well, no, like, I didn't know you were up. Like, it didn't feel right. So it kind of feels like both of them were kind of thinking of the same thing. Um, and so they were kind of both on the same wavelength. So at some point in this movie, we have Chris who goes to this bar so that way he can study, and the vampires to show up at this bar. And so we have the vampire that is to go and have this girl named Marika show up here and try to seduce Chris. And then, weirdly, I guess, somehow or another, we have the vampire who's like implanting this doubt in Charlotte's mind to say like, oh yeah, like your boy is just gonna go on to um, any other girl as soon as you're not willing to put out, or as soon as certain friends of Charlotte are starting to say it's like, well, hey, like you know what, you could probably like you could probably just start like looking around for other guys. You don't have to go on and stick with Chris. And Charlotte's like, yeah, I don't know, like, I'm not sure, because they have been together for a year, and so now it's either time to either make or break with this relationship, I guess. So to kind of, I guess, really just be like, well, hey, like we've been together for X amount of times, we should like now just like is this really gonna go somewhere kind of thing, is the whole suspicion, where it's like, if is Chris going to be fine uh, with Charlotte's lifestyle, or is he going to continue to pressure her to then just get her to the point of just like, you know what, like no, like we're done. So we have Charlotte and we have Chris, and so Charlotte, of course, is to talk to Chris and is to kind of dissolve the relationship, because Charlotte is to really just be interested in like trying other things, going in other directions, and like it just has something to do with Chris, and like Charlotte just can't put a finger on it right now. So Charlotte then, or Chris then goes on and is to be with this other girl, and he tries to like go on, and he's at this fire escape and he's like kissing this girl and all these kinds of things, but then he realizes how wrong it is, and he realizes that he just can't go through with this, because again, like in his mind, he's still like just in love with Charlotte. So Chris tries to restrain himself from being with this woman, and this woman is to all of a sudden reply with its aggressive nature. But all of a sudden, we have Marika, who turns back into this vampire guy and scares Chris, I guess. Just be like, okay, this is so weird. So we go on and have at some point where, uh, since Charlotte is to be kind of free to do whatever she wants now, she doesn't have like Chris to be attached to. It seems that Charlotte is to go on and start reading this book, and she bumps into Sarah here, or let me try to get this correct. Yeah, Sarah. Luckily, I just randomly know people's names, and anyways, it's just great to have that ability. So Charlotte goes on and is talking to Sarah, and Sarah's like consistently taking this girl's picture, and it leads to Sarah just like pushing Charlotte. She's like, well, hey, like, how about you come to my room and I'll take your picture? And so Sarah's to consistently go on and take this girl's picture, and so Sarah is to continue to tell like Charlotte like, okay, like, well, how about you just kind of like open yourself up a little bit more? How about you just kind of open up your shirt a little bit more? And so on and so forth, to where it just seems like this girl is to be like just showcasing everything um, to an extent. And so all of a sudden, it seems that Sarah is to um, feel very like enticed to like touch this girl and kiss this girl, and so all of a sudden we have Charlotte that immediately just kind of pushes back. It's like, no, no, I'm not ready for this. And so later on, we have Sarah going and meeting with Charlotte to just like, you know what, I'm sorry about like the night before, And Charlotte's like, well, no, like, I think that's like, it's fine, and I can't wait to see like what you do with those photos. And so it's like, oh, okay. So what a weird, absurd movie. Um, but like, I guess it's just like a woman just kind of being free, and I guess that's the real theme here. Um, Free to just kind of say like, you no, like I just kind of want to do this kind of thing, and this is as far as I go, and that's it, and like that's really what it comes down to. But we also have Charlotte having this dream sequence where she's being in a bed where she's being kissed by a number of people, both Chris, both Sarah, and all of a sudden it leads at the end to be the vampire who is to give one last kind of thing that is to lead to Charlotte going and uh, like even being more just dream sequencely seduced by this vampire. So we have Charlotte going out to these parties, and so it seems that she is to bump into this vampire at this one party, and so we have Charlotte that's asking this vampire, it's like, why are you haunting me? And it's like, well, hey, like, the vampire can't control it, like, and so really he has been in love before, and that ended up getting like ruined, and so now like it feels like he is just trying to uh like push to like maybe not say that he is to uh want to absolutely fall in love with somebody, but he wants to be with somebody for eternity, and Charlotte might fit the bill. So we have this vampire that consistently keeps pushing, and really just leads to Charlotte, who keeps having these horrible like hallucinations within her class, to where she can't even concentrate in her class, to where she just kind of rushes off. And I'm all over the place. I'll admit that, but it is what it is with this story. So Charlotte is to then, from all the stuff that has happened to her, all the like the compounding things that are to go on, Charlotte decides that maybe she just needs a change of pace, a change of outfit, to maybe not look as innocent, and plus also her birthday is coming up. So Charlotte is assigned to like have a much more darker approach, a darker appeal, and to be much more wild and free. So Charlotte, of course, is to go to this party and is to like look very wildly different than she's ever looked. Showing that she, I guess, is much older. All of a sudden, is smoking a cigarette for some reason, uh, to be very unlike her previous character, but also to be kind of like the Grease girl from Grease movie. So Charlotte is at this party, and everybody's like, "Whoa!" So Charlotte is to get this drink, of course, from her nemesis, who is to be Eliza, and we have almost where like Charlotte is going to almost steal Eliza's boyfriend, but it seems like that's all just a ruse to get Charlotte to drink this drink that has ecstasy in it. And so now Charlotte is starting to trip out, and all of a sudden, this normal party that they're at, this normal shindig, all of a sudden goes on to this explosion of all these people just kind of doing these dirty dancing kind of moments, or just kind of getting on to almost bedroom business like group session of sorts, and so on and so forth. Like there's only a certain set of words that I can probably say here. So we just see an explosion of all these people just kind of going on, um, kissing and whatever. And then all of a sudden we have this vampire that is to appear and start going on and biting into everybody. So we obviously see that this guy doesn't have like vampire fangs. He just goes on and bites into people. That it seems, and he's just kind of like ah. We go on and we have him like consuming from all these people, and so Charlotte is to make it back to her room, and so Eliza is to follow her, and so the vampire is to notice that this girl is banging against this door, wanting to try to get to Charlotte here. And the vampire goes on and bashes this girl's head against this door, and then is to lick the blood from off this door. And we're not quite sure if Charlotte is to like realize what's going on here, but like we have this weird scene here where both of them are just kind of at this door together, possibly maybe like they can't deny that there's some kind of like possible like what's the perfect word here, like body heat kind of going on between the two of them, even though vampire, but still. So we eventually have in this story where the vampire is to go on and take Charlotte and have her at his place so he can go on and do this ceremony to drain this girl's blood and to have her for eternity to be his love. So we have the vampire that's going on and trying to suck this girl's blood, but we just consistently still have Charlotte adamant that she still is to love Chris by continuing just to say his name. So we have a vampire that is to just realize here that he is going, like, he's having a no-win fight here, that there's no way that he's going to win this battle, and there's nothing that he can do to try to win this girl over. So like what he's going to do is just die here. He's just going to die, hoping possibly that if he is to go on to the afterlife, maybe he'll find his true love again and be happily ever after. Happily ever after? My bad. Just ninth hour here and just like blah. So my apologies. So we have Chris that is to appear, and you would have thought like Chris would have figured out this guy was a vampire and like, okay, we're gonna take this guy down, we're gonna garlic him, and we're gonna stake him to death. None of that happens. So Chris is to come there, and so the vampire is to go on and like finger lightning bolt Chris to knock him down. But what the vampire is trying to do is just not going to work. And this girl is going to turn 18 and have the vampire realize that there's no way that he can take the innocence away from this girl because she just will never like see him that way because she has already gone on and found some other suitor, some other guy. And so the Dracula, the vampire character just kind of walks off, and he goes in this room and is to kind of collapse with this book that has these empty pages. So Charlotte is to find Chris laying on the floor, and so both of them are to embrace and are to kiss here. And we have Charlotte that is mentioning to Chris that like, hey, it's my birthday, and really that's just kind of how the movie just kind of fizzles out, with both of them just kind of going on and having this happy ending supposedly. Just very weird and odd like film that I went on and kind of rushed through to try to get this review done. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about embrace of the vampire, and especially my review that I just again I really just rushed through this one, because really at the end of the day, there's probably not a lot of people that might not even know this movie exists, or really at the end of it all, like the only real selling points is the stuff that I can't really mention all that much. So, like we also had a scene between Sarah and Charlotte where Sarah was to go on and meet with Charlotte. Well, Charlotte had like this kind of new like persona about herself, and so Sarah was to mention it's like, well, hey, it seems like you were like dressed as this like innocent girl before, but now you are this wild woman now. And Charlotte's like, well, yeah, because I feel different. So we have it where since Sarah's to conveniently be here with Charlotte, Charlotte is to go on and start touching and start feeling, and but Charlotte is to go on and bite Sarah to where I guess Sarah is to start to bleed, so she's kind of like, like, and so Sarah just walks off, and Charlotte's like, well, what did I do? Like, did I bite you? And so the girl leaves to just show that this girl is to be a much more vicious girl than she was before, that she might turn to the dark side. But yeah, like I think for most of this movie, I think that's all that I wanted to say here. Kind of a bit of a rush job, but like there isn't much going on besides like little small stories here and there. Um, to just kind of tie this up, there isn't much of a story here either. But at least I had something to say for 40 some odd minutes. So that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.